anything else that we should talk about in terms of how to pull this off?
Yes, definitely. Don't wear jeans. I'm really sorry.
And cowboy boots is probably a no-go too?
Cowboy boots, actually. I'd say cowboy boots before jeans.
Okay. Before you really get into it, I have a very basic question. So this is morning dress.
Yes.
Could you also call it tails?
Yes.
Okay, so it's those terms are sort of interchangeable?
You could call it, you often call it morning. This is a morning coat.
Okay.
It's also known as a morning dress or morning tails.
Okay.
You could call it tails, but I certainly wouldn't put tails on an invitation because you could confuse it with evening tails.
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up question. If there are
You
evening
have
tails,
you have tails for the morning, for day wear,
okay.
and there's evening tails. It's a very, very smart outfit, very rarely seen, less than often the morning dress. I mean, the key item is the coat.
Okay.
Usually black. It's usually with one button, with the link button and a relatively wide peak lapel, and this is a structured garment.
Yep.
I have seen some tailors be very brave and try to do it unstructured, and I don't think they really didn't go much further with it. So you do generally, on the classic ones, on the older ones, they were very chesty, very rounded, because they wanted that real hourglass shape into the waist. The waist seam is hugely important here, that horizontal seam going across, because it affords so much more shape into the garment.
Now, I have a technical question. So the morning coat has a horizontal seam to sort of give that shape.
It's part of it.
You don't see that on a suit.
You
Is
don't
that
see that
because you
lounge
have
suit.
tails and you need that to?
The
you're
reason
essentially lacking
the
more
lounge
quarters?
suit was a more informal garment, so it was like you call in America a sack suit. That word is also used in some European countries, the sack, to refer to an unseamed jacket.
Okay.
So it has no seam here. The
you
back.
You
have the darts still at the front, and you have side pockets. Interestingly, a morning coat very, very, very rarely takes side pockets.
Okay.
They were taken off around the turn of the 19th, 20th century, when people were very keen on getting that beautiful hourglass figure. So to make it even sleeker, the pockets were removed. You will, I'm being very archaic here because heck I can be, you do occasionally see on models post-war around the 1950s, a small pocket on the right-hand side, like a ticket pocket, but not for weddings. That's more for if you're wearing it for Royal Ascot or the races. But I'm being seriously archaic there. A morning coat doesn't have side pockets. It takes a chest pocket for your pocket square, a structured shoulder, and the fronts are cut away. Now the length of the morning coat changes with fashion. I've seen a lot of vintage morning coats because I'm a bit of a morning coat fan, and they go from being quite long. I've seen some sort of Edwardian, which are very long, down to being quite short, almost like a jacket. So if you're buying one off the peg, pick one which suits you. I generally prefer it to be slightly too short and slightly too long. But the key to it is you want quite a high waist. It's very flattering. It's formal wear.
So, and the jacket is traditionally black, or I'm guessing it can be a sort of dark charcoal.
Dark charcoal was also classic, but nowadays you'd expect it to be in black. And then you wear that with a separate coloured waistcoat, dove greys, pale blues.
I've seen people get very take a lot of liberties. At least from my eyes, seems like people can take a lot of liberty with the color choice of the waistcoat, and maybe even, I don't know if it's the shirt or the tie, but sometimes I see a lot going on sort of here.
In the waistcoat?
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, I think we can reference a very famous film, probably like Four Weddings and a Funeral, which probably most Americans reference to when they think of morning dresses when they see it. It's in cinema. There was a fashion, from the 90s to have sort of dandy-ish waistcoats. You don't see it so much these days. But I think because like everything, it becomes fashionable and it becomes seen as unwanted, like you step away from it. But you do sometimes see brocade silk waistcoats, which I think can be beautiful. And I'm almost, because they're so not worn, it's been quite subversive. I think it can be quite fun again. But you need to have a big personality and confidence to wear that as a wedding guest.
Okay, so traditional.
It's very much, if it's your wedding, it was like, that was it. I'm going to the wedding. I wear my black morning coat, which I already have. I wear my standard striped trousers I've worn to other people's weddings. But I'm going to indulge in my fancy silk waistcoat, and that would be like your wedding dress.
So that's where you can bring in some personality and fun into your morning dress outfit, because that differs obviously, for the way that most Americans bring personality sort of to the forefront in what they wear to a wedding. They'll play with ties or pocket squares.
No, sure. No, it's more the waistcoat. But that's an older trend. From the customers I see now and who I do style advice to now, is that the waistcoat is almost coming away from that, and there's more interest in other parts of the outfit, or just giving a combined look.
Okay.
People are very detailed focused. I think it's more interesting for me than having the fancy waistcoat. Is this one here? So what I wore was a very greyed off sort of beige colour, a buff colour, double breasted. I prefer double breasted waistcoats with morning dress because they give a very clean front. The buttons are hidden under the coat, so if you have a single breasted waistcoat, which is perfectly correct, you've got more going on, whereas a double breasted gives it a very clean, sleek look, which is in keeping with the overall aesthetic. And then you can do some archaic detail. So the two things I absolutely love, and I suggest if you want to wear morning dress, this is how you'd wear it, is to have a separate starched collar rather than a collar attached shirt. They're not relatively expensive, but they do look extremely smart and elegant and create a real focus point for it, because you've got that structure to the collar, which complements the structure of the coat.
So is it possible to achieve the same sort of stiffness in the collar if you just have a contrasting attached collar, or it's necessary to go with the...
No, you can't. I mean, you can create a very smart shirt.
Yeah.
Most people now, I think, wear collar attached shirts. Some people like to mimic the elegance of the starched collar while wearing a coloured shirt, maybe usually pale blue, sometimes pale pink, with a white collar. They sometimes like to put a white cuff with it, or they can wear the same colour in the body. A double cuff white shirt is still very smart. Always double cuff the cufflinks.
Yep.
And you want a classic collar, so you want something which sits smartly. Obviously no button terms, sorry.
Yeah. So
no OCBDs this today.
Well, I can appreciate that. So regarding the shirt, I mean, you talked a lot about the details of the shirt, but let's run through it. So it's not a pointed collar; it's a curved.
It's a curved collar. Okay, this is being archaic.
Yeah.
If you're buying starched collars, most starched collars were designed probably in the Edwardian era. I don't think I was designed a new one. I know of a couple, but generally if you go into a traditional men's outfit and buy a starched collar, they haven't changed in generations.
Okay.
So you do have access to clothing which hasn't changed in 50, 100 years. So this is an authentic traditional collar with the rounded points, which you very rarely see in real life, even at morning dress. So I think if somebody who's wearing this, and again to the effort of wearing a starched collar, you're kind of saying, look, you're making a feature of it by
I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing. It's a very confident look. If I saw someone wearing this, I'd say you've nicked my outfit. Then I'd say you look really smart. What I love particularly about starched collars, is, apart from the fact they're so fresh and sharp, is the way they make the front tie not come away from the neck. It's something I've talked about before, just in dressing generally, because they're attached by studs. The stud acts as a little bit of an anchor and pushes it out for it. It just looks very, very smart. And then my old favourite mother of pearl stick pin is what you'd have worn traditionally with morning dress, because it would be for an ascot, a cravat.
So you said always double cuff.
Always double cuff.
And it can be contrasting, or it can be.
If you're going for collar attached with a white collar, you could do the white cuff if that's what your taste is, or you could do a white collar and self cuff to look more. Do you want to have a certain look, or do you want to mimic?
So the contrasting cuff would be a little bit more of a look. Let's
more
say,
of a
little bit stronger.
It's a different kind of look. But with a starched collar, the cuff always matches the shirt's body.
And it's probably a little hard to see behind the tie, but the shirt just has regular mother of pearl buttons, no studs. It's just a classic.
It's exactly the same as a traditional sort of German street shirt.
Okay.
Long tails, button front. Yeah. I mean, this one in particular has a double front, so there's double layers of fabric at the front, like a bib, to give it stronger colour contrast. But that's just a bespoke detail. That's
a Chris Modoo detail.
That's a bit of Chris Modoo detail.
Yeah. And talking about other starch elements of this, I don't know what you would call it, but the insert beneath
slips.
The slip.
When I first got into trade in the 90s, they would only be seen bespoke. You can now buy them ready-made in Jermyn Street.
And what's the purpose, and how did they stay attached?
They attach a strip of fabric which you attach by buttons inside your waistcoat. They came around I think late 19th century, early 20th century, as a point when in the Regency fashion of wearing two waistcoats, you'd wear an undervest and an undervest and under your waistcoat, because vests were a sign of affluence, so you want to wear two at once. So it's mimicking an undervest.
Okay.
There are other stories, apothecary stories about how they come around, but that's what I tend to believe. And it just creates a very smart border that you don't notice straight away, but it's a sign of someone who's very confident. I only really like to wear slips if I'm wearing a starch collar. I think it's kind of in keeping. If you're wearing a collar attached shirt and slips, if that makes you happy, that's fine. But I think to really do it properly, in keeping of the style, of that archaic look, of that really fresh, laundered look, yeah.
I have two other questions that came to mind. I guess just starting with the sleeves, so the buttons. I know on like a traditional tuxedo, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, normally the buttons, they're not working buttonholes. I could be wrong on that.
No, there's no reason not to put a working cuff on a dinner suit or a tuxedo or a morning coat.
Is it the same with the morning coat? Okay.
Yeah, the cuff detail remains the same. So you have a 4-button working cuff
is fine,
as I would on a lounge suit. Yeah.
Okay, and then what about pocket squares? Is there a rule with that, or should it just be complementary to the overall colors?
Again, I'm going into general wedding territories. I would wear my pocket square to complement my overall outfit and not to match anything. I think a morning coat screams out for a pocket square because you've got so much black otherwise. Yeah. And it just needs it to break it up. Even if you wear as a flat white, like you would for black tie perhaps, like a flat squared linen, I've worn that before. Or I just like a complementary colour. You've got the blues and the beiges in here, which sort of hint towards the vest and the shirt, but of course nothing to do with the tie whatsoever. Ties traditionally can be very fine printed or very fine wovens. You don't really wear bold ties, but again, like the waistcoat, affects your personality. It comes through. It's not necessarily a uniform. It's more of a mode of dress.
Okay, and as we're talking about accessories, I think we have to talk a little bit about headwear. Hats. Do you wear a hat with this look?
Top hat.
Top hat. Okay.
But again, going back to tradition, is you get married in a church. A gentleman doesn't wear a hat in church, so you end up carrying them. So you.
So if you're getting married in church, it's
well,
not really.
You're either carrying it, or you have it for the photographs.
Yeah.
As a guest at a wedding now, I would say you don't need a hat. I think one of the most popular questions I've been asked over the years about, particularly for morning dress and other outfits, is can I wear a flower in my lapel and a pocket square? And I have read it in certain fashion books, I use the term loosely, that you don't wear both. You don't wear both, it's too busy. Absolutely disagree. I think weddings are one of the few times, sadly nowadays, a gentleman can wear a flower in his lapel because it's such an elegant touch. A black morning coat, it just breaks up the vastness of it. And I just think if you have a flower and no pocket square, it draws your attention to an empty pocket. It looks quite sad. If you have a very elaborate flower, I wouldn't go with a very elaborate pocket square. It might be fighting for attention. You might go for something more simple, but it's like I'm wearing like a white linen with a bit of a border. But really, no, you wear both.
So I've seen this outfit in a grey variation. What's your opinion on that?
Very elegant. I'm a big fan of the grey morning suit. And this is really interesting, and I think we've touched on this before, but when we talk about separates and suits, and the people that are big, the suit will never die, just because the suit's never died and the suit's always been around, and the suit's always smarter than separates. And I say, yeah, but morning dress, The smarter option is separates. Black coat, cashmere trousers, contrasting vest is considered more formal than when you make it the three things in the same fabric.
Yeah.
So the grey, I like a mid-tone.
Okay.
Charcoal is also very smart, but I like a mid-tone. The fabric you usually choose is either pick and pick or shark skin, or bird's eye beautifully. Like a really fine bird's eye looks fantastic. And all three elements are in the same fabric.
All right, we covered a lot with the morning coat. Is there anything else that we should talk about in terms of how to pull this off?
Yes, definitely. Don't wear jeans. I'm really sorry.
And cowboy boots is probably a no-go
Cowboy
too?
boots, actually. I'd say cowboy boots before jeans.
Okay.
I think you could probably wear cowboy boots for a morning dress. That'd be quite cool.
All right, but if I can't wear cowboy boots, what am I wearing then? Or if I can't wear jeans, I apologize.
They call them cashmere stripes.
Okay.
So this is what we call a cashmere stripe. The word cashmere is based on the word casimiri, I believe, which was a 19th century expression for a fancy worsted. For weddings and ascot, people go for more of a silver grey.
Okay.
If I'm serving a customer, if I'm dealing with someone who comes to me for advice, and they're wearing it in a more sombre situation, as some people do, if they're wearing morning dress and they're more likely to wear it for a funeral, or they're wearing it as part of their profession, they'd probably go for darker stripes, a bit more sombre. But a good mid-grey will see you through most occasions.
And I guess the only other thing we haven't really covered, I'm looking down right now, is I'm thinking about shoes.
Black calf Oxfords,
Yeah.
black calf, Chelsea boots are very smart, punch toe cap Oxfords. I've even seen a very smart black loafer. So yeah, a black polished shoe is always smart.
Would this particular outfit work for all events where you would wear morning coat or morning attire, or could you change things up?
You would need to change things up for certain occasions. I would say this would be spot on for Royal Ascot, although you'd have to wear a hat to get into the royal enclosure as part of the dress code. If you was wearing it for an investiture, you still look very smart. You might want to be more conservative and maybe swap out the beige waistcoat, the buff waistcoat for a black waistcoat, but that's still very, very smart. For a memorial service, which you knew was to be morning dress, again, you wouldn't wear a fancy pocket square, you'd wear a black vest and a more sombre tie. But the basic, your classic black morning coat will see you through all the occasions. You don't need a second morning coat.
Okay.
You could have one, like I said, we touched on the grey one, but for the black morning coat is always appropriate.
Okay, good to know. Well, we hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have any further questions, please put them in the comments below, and our very own Master of Morning Dress will be sure to answer those. And also check out our video on how to dress for a wedding just below.